Okay, Chairman, we're now live screening. I'll hand the meeting over to yourself. Thank you.
Lovely, thanks so much, Teresa. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's Cabinet meeting at 9:30. Great to see so many of you joining us again today. Just to go through some housekeeping, I think it's a well-rehearsed routine now, but just for clarity, for those non-members wishing to address the meeting, you are most welcome. If at any point you wish to ask a question or raise a point on any of the agenda items which we go through today, please either put your physical hand up or your virtual hand, or put something in the chat function, and both Teresa and Julie will help me get round to you throughout the course of today's meeting. So we'll crack straight on then with the agenda as presented. Item 1 is the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 13th of July. Cabinet colleagues, are they a true and accurate record? Super, thank you very much. Item 2, apologies for absence, Teresa.
Okay, Chairman, I don't have any apologies for absence.
Item 2, apologies for absence, Teresa. Sorry, was there something else, Teresa?
I've got an echo on my screen, that's all. So I don't know. I'm getting a delay. So I'm sorry, Chairman. I don't know if somebody's got their
I've got an
chat.
echo on my screen, that's all. So I don't know. I'm getting a delay. So I'm sorry, Chairman.
Well, we'll keep you muted then, Teresa, and then hopefully we won't get any feedback. And colleagues, I don't think anybody else is getting an echo. No, super. We'll move on then. So item 3, urgent business. I haven't got any. Item 4, declarations of interest for Cabinet colleagues and other members of the Council. No. Item 5, non-members wishing to address the meeting. Welcome. We've got 30 members here today. I think 28. So welcome to all of you. Philip, you had your hand up, Councillor Philip Morton.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, central government is coming forward with a number of funding initiatives to mitigate climate change, such as the Green Homes Grant Local Authority Delivery Scheme, designed to improve the energy efficiency of low-income households, and in the Plan for Jobs, where £1 billion is provided to encourage a public sector decarbonisation scheme. Can the Cabinet Member for Sustainability confirm we are taking advantage of these funding initiatives to mitigate climate change in Breckland?
Lovely, thanks, Councillor Morton. So it's not normal convention for members of council to ask open questions like that at Cabinet. So that question particularly sits under the sustainability strategy. So if Councillor Sherwood could pick that up at item 11, Councillor Morton, that's all right. I'm sure that Ian wrote down the question diligently. But no, so normal convention is for questions in relation to the agenda items at Cabinet. Normal questions such as that are asked at full council, just for clarification. So item 6 then, which is Chairman's announcement. I've just got 2 announcements today for colleagues. Everyone who from the emails they received on Tuesday from the Chief Executive, that Anna has sadly tendered her resignation to Breckland District Council and South Holland District Council. And she's decided to step down from her role as Chief Executive of both those authorities and the wider local government family as we know it. And I just wanted to share some thoughts on her time with us. I've worked with Anna for the last 5 years as leader and the deputy leader, and to recognise her fantastic contribution to not just this council's success, but the wider success of local government in Norfolk, Lincolnshire and the Eastern region. Over the 6 years that we've been together, Anna's energy, determination has helped strengthen our shared partnership between us and South Holland District Council, as well as driving those innovation and changes which Lord Porter and Councillor William Nunn wanted to achieve when they gave birth to the partnership some 12 years ago. Our networking and partnership skills, built through the 30-year career in local government, 30 years Anna's been involved with local government, has helped position Breckland as a true partner of choice for many of in the Eastern region, and obviously whether it's our partners of South Holland, Norfolk County Council, through our ARP, or North Norfolk and Kings, in many councils across Norfolk recognise Breckland as a partner of choice. And it really does make Breckland and our communities a greater place in which both residents and businesses can thrive. Her commercial focus particularly has allowed Breckland to balance not just its personal commitment to our community, but also with the most vulnerable residents. And Anna has championed particular areas such as the domestic violence and modern slavery, raising awareness not just with the public sector, but the wider community as a whole. Anna will remain with us until the beginning of October of this year. So it's time for us to say some personal goodbyes over these next couple of weeks. And I know that Anna particularly will want to address us all at full council, where all members will be present. However, I'm sure that you will all join with me, if you haven't already, in offering your personal thanks to Anna for her tireless energy, commitment and service to the residents and businesses of Breckland and Norfolk as a whole. And I wish her all the very best for the future. I know that she will be immensely busy, not just professionally, but also personally with an extended family, which arrived earlier this spring. On a more practical note, though, we will be looking at a number of options to cover the gap which Anna will create, and it will be a big gap in both authorities. And both myself and Lord Porter are committed to our current partnership with South Holland and delivering a roadmap for recovery that has already been agreed by Cabinet. Anna, I don't know if you wish to say anything then. You don't have to.
Just thank you very much, Sam.
Brevity is key. Thank you. And the next point I just wish to talk about is in relation to the devolution and recovery white paper. Those learned colleagues who follow the NJ, the LGC or the LGA news will be aware that government is waiting for the recovery white paper to be announced in September, October of this year. And our county colleagues have presented a report at their Cabinet today to talk about their commitment and their direction of travel to respond when the white paper arrives. And I just wanted to give some clarity that Breckland is committed to work through the opportunities for change with our partners across Norfolk and the wider Eastern region. However, we do await the white paper and see where we can develop options of all our partners across the county to improve the lives for our residents and businesses alike. And it is our responsibility to make sure that any options provide the improvement for our communities and we represent, and therefore we've all got that role to take in making sure that we have an open mind when the white paper arrives. At present, and without the white paper and its details, it'd be premature for us to be presenting any position on Breckland, but we will respond at pace once the white paper does arrive. So we'll move on to item 7 then, which is a standard item, which is Breckland Community Funding Application. Councillor Mark Robinson, please.
Thank you, Leader. We don't have any grants coming forward, but I would like to take the opportunity to remind members that our community funding scheme, which is administered by Norfolk Community Foundation, reopened on the 1st of September.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Mark. We'll move on to item 8, which is the review of the local council tax reduction scheme for 2021-22. And Councillor Philip Cowan to present, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, good morning. This is the first of 3 papers upon which I'm reporting today, and all of them are given against a background that is unprecedented in our lifetimes. The local council tax reduction scheme is one that will be familiar to you, this being the 8th year that Breckland has run its locally set scheme. The latest iteration saw Breckland introduce a fluctuating earnings rule, whereby we allowed a floating tolerance to make it easier for our customers to manage their finances month to month. We are charged to review our scheme on an annual basis, hence this paper today. The current level of maximum benefit being 91.5% for working age claimants and a fully funded package for war pensioners, a key part of Breckland's Armed Forces Covenant. I said at the start that we're living through unprecedented times, and the impact of the pandemic, whilst affecting all of society, does have the potential to have a greater impact on the most vulnerable in society, and thus the fluctuating earnings rule has proved particularly beneficial to many in our Breckland community. The report before you identifies that we have seen a 500% increase in workload as a result of COVID-19, although this is now reducing to levels that are more typical. However, the impact of the pandemic has not disappeared, and local flare-ups are likely to lead to an increase in casework for the team. In conclusion, there are two options to consider, as set out in section 2 of the report, and our recommendations in section 3 are unambiguous. We should retain the scheme for the year 2021 to 22, and that it be reviewed in the subsequent year. If there are any questions, either I or Adrian Mills of ARP are here to respond. I commend the recommendations to you. Thank you, Chairman.
Lovely, thank you very much, Phil. Any questions in relation to the report? I've got Councillor Clark, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry for the delay there. Yes, question for Councillor Cowan. Yes, thank you very much for the review. It's welcome that this is still continuing. When you have a further review going forward, are you going to be looking at any changes in the categories of where support is given to? So I think obviously COVID-19 has thrown up particular groups and individuals that perhaps they haven't given the attention they have before. I don't have any particular definite proposals, but obviously going forward, we might want to look at that in a year's time or so. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Clark, thank you for that comment. The answer to the question is a review is a review. And as a result of that, I would expect effectively an open book review to examine all the implications of what we've experienced, particularly this year. And I'm sure that all of us would welcome anyone's input into that review process. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Phil. Councillor Robinson, please.
Thank you, Leader. Not so much a question, but a comment. I'm really pleased to see the introduction of the fluctuating earnings rule. It's a small but significant structure where we're supporting residents. For those, their employment may vary from week to week and subsequently income. It assists in continuity for the household for some of our harder pressed residents.
Thanks, Mark. Any other questions or comments for Councillor Cowan, please?
In which case, Chairman, may I move those two recommendations?
Thank you. All in agreement? Super. Thank you very much indeed. So we'll move on to item 9, which is the revised budget for 2021, and Councillor Cowan to present again, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I said in my earlier presentation that we're living in unprecedented times, and I doubt whether any of us can recall a time when your council has had to consider a change to the budget partway through a fiscal year. COVID-19 has had a significant impact on the workings and financial status of councils throughout the United Kingdom, and Breckland is no exception. In June, we presented an interim report on the likely and potential impact of COVID-19 on the budget that was set before the world changed in March this year. Today, I can report that yes, we have suffered losses through our reductions in income streams, and they're shown on paragraph 1.3. Yes, we have experienced additional costs as identified in paragraph 1.4 of the papers before you. Yes, we have received government grant targeted at some of the gaps that pandemic has created. And yes, the government support, while substantial, has not funded fully the budget gap that has resulted from the impact of the pandemic on Breckland. However, I can say that Breckland Council, through prudent fiscal management, is able to absorb the majority of the financial gap by drawing down reserves, all as shown in Appendix A of the report, and that we are confident that as we move forward, we shall be able to put in place measures to address the £217,000 shortfall that's identified. In summary, I must thank the teams within Breckland Council who've worked in challenging and, at times, often difficult circumstances to put this revised budget together. This has been a work stream that they have not encountered before, and hopefully one which will not occur again. Full details of the budget are set out in the report, and Appendix A shows the summary of the revenue budget amendments. Alison Chubbuck and I will endeavour to answer any questions. In the meantime, I commend recommendations 1 and 2 to you. Thank you, Chairman.
Lovely, thank you very much indeed, Phil. Any questions or comments in relation to the revised budget for 2021? I've got Councillor Clark, please.
Thank you. Yes, it's me again, Chairman. Yes, thank you, Councillor Cam, for your presentation. And like, I'm sure, like other councils, we want to pay tribute to the work of the team in these difficult circumstances, not only remote working, but also the challenges of actually looking at reductions from our previous position. My question is, I notice obviously we have, as expected, lost some revenue in a number of areas, particularly around commercial services, and obviously there will be some abatements for tenants and so forth. I wondered, would it be possible to have for members to have either in the members confidential section or below the line a sort of breakdown of where those particular gaps are? We understand obviously some of that is obviously going to be commercially sensitive, so I wouldn't be asking for that as a public document, but just helps our understanding where we are, you know, going forward. Thank you.
Councillor Clark, thank you once again for a quite incisive question. Yes, as you're obviously aware, a lot of the information that's gone into producing this particular report has a commercially confidential nature attached to it. And the summary is just that. It is a summary. I'm sure that Alison and the team will be able to pull together a sort of supportive document for members should they wish it. But recognising, of course, that sometimes some of that information may not be able to be released.
Thank you. Councillor Hewitt, please.
Thank you, Chair. In some ways, this is a combination of a comment and also a bit of frustration. It's odd to publicise and reflect on bad news. We have, as Councillor Cowan said, like many councils, incurred losses and more costs, and government grants haven't met all of our gaps within our current spending plans. But at the same time, I would just like to emphasise one thing that Phil has said, which is that actually through robust and careful stewardship, the situation that we now face ourselves with is far better than I believe what many councils have faced during this pandemic. Will this report create sensational headlines? Probably not. Will it get the press it deserves in terms of understanding our financial propriety? Probably not. But will it allow our residents and businesses to thrive in the future? Absolutely. I do commend this report fully in terms of both the effort that's gone behind it and also the efforts that it reflects in terms of making sure that our businesses and residents will thrive over the next couple of years.
Thanks so much, Paul. I've got Councillor Attewell, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Phil, could I just ask, looking at these figures in Appendix A, we're looking at a very substantial amount of lost income for planning, building control, land charges, etc. Have we got the ability with the contract as written with Capita to claw any of that back? Obviously, if we're not got, if you've got that amount of lost income, there clearly hasn't been the work being done in the planning department, I would suggest. So therefore, how that contract is written, and I'm not privy to that information, I'm just wondering whether we could claw back some of that lost income. Is there any clawback mechanism in the contract with Capita? I think that's an important question that we really need to ask. Thank you.
Thanks for that question, Councillor Attewell. Contracts sits in a different portfolio, but what I can tell you is this, that whilst there has been a clear reduction in applications, Capita are clearly not responsible for that reduction at all. That's a result of circumstances that the country has faced for the last 6 months. But I am aware from conversations with colleagues in the Capita planning department that they've never seen quite such a large number of planning applications hitting them at the moment. I'm anticipating that the planning income stream that we would have projected will actually gather a little bit more momentum than we might have thought earlier, because there are significant planning applications in the pipeline, and some of them have already landed. But as to whether there's a clawback, I can't answer that. I'll be absolutely honest, and I'm not sure if Councillor Hewitt, who is responsible for contracts, is able to do so either, but I'll defer to him in that matter.
Thanks.
If I can come in, Phil, if I may, rest assured, Councillor Attewell, if there is provision for a clawback, we will pursue it. Without giving too much confidential information away, the contract is the contract. And as Phil mentioned, there are some opportunities moving forwards. We will be looking very closely in terms of whether there is any potential for clawback. I have to alert you, the contract is the contract.
Thanks, Paul. Rob Walker, did you just want to expand on anything at all, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. There's no clawback mechanism within the contract as suggested by or asked by Councillor Attewell. Within the contract, income retention, which largely falls to the authority, particularly for building control income, and the majority of planning income falls to the council, but it's not linked to cost expenditure directly in any clawback approach. That said, there are mechanisms within the contract. If volume of works and thresholds aren't met, then there is opportunity to revisit the price. Historically, over the contract, those volumes have always been exceeded, and I believe that's still the case during COVID, but I will double check that volumes and thresholds have been met. Any price reduction would be down to negotiation rather than a particular clause within the contract.
Lovely, thanks, Rob. Any other questions in relation to the report? Thanks, Phil. I just want to give my thanks to you and all the finance team for putting this together. In my role sitting on the District Councillors Network for England, councils across the country are struggling, and they've had to pivot over these last couple of months what their priorities are. And many of those councils who are announcing a new budget are changing the delivery of services which they're offering. And Breckland's proposal, which you've got here today, is still delivering on all our core services to the same level and standard we have throughout the pandemic. We are still committed to all of our capital programmes, including Elm Road, which is going to make a significant difference to the lives of many of our residents. And for our Market Town Initiatives programme, we are still committed to £150,000 for each one of our market towns over the next 3 years. Other councils across Norfolk, you will see, are announcing their budget changes, and some of those are into the millions of pounds into a deficit. And many of those are having to take money out of reserves. So I think that through Breckland's previous stewardship, prowess, and professionalism, the interim budget being presented today shows that Breckland Council's commitment to our residents and our businesses is still there. And I'm looking forward with Cabinet colleagues and council colleagues over these next preceding weeks to announce how Breckland will be changing to improve further its commitment to both our communities and our business communities on the back of COVID, to ensure that Breckland has stronger resilience and is delivering for all. If there are no other questions.
Chairman, we have Councillor Attewell.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Councillor Attewell, please.
Thank you, Chairman. We all recognise this is a really difficult situation, but just for clarity, Chairman, whether you can answer this or Mr. Cowan, we've said here that we've got a deficit of £217,487. But to mitigate, to get to that figure, we've had to use a substantial amount of reserve. Now, I appreciate that we're in a position where we can use that reserve, but that's still money that this council is having to use, as opposed to the government, I believe. So are we expecting any more funding to come from central government? Has that question been asked? Have they made any noises to that effect that there might be another tranche of funding coming? Because no matter how hard this council tries, and trust me, I do believe that everybody on this council has been working extremely hard, we've got a problem. We've taken a financial hit. This pandemic looks like it's raising its ugly head again. The spike We've all seen that on the TV in the last few days. And I really just want to know, is there going to be any more money, or have we just been left to our own devices? What noises have you heard from the LGA, please?
Thanks, Councillor Atwell. I'll just allow Alison Chubbuck just to respond to the question in detail, and then I'll come in at the end just to give you a bit of an update on what's happening across the wider local government family.
Thank you, Chairman. No, we have not been announced any other income or grants from the government at all. There may be some small amounts, what we call new burdens grants, where they cover the costs of sort of council tax rebilling, business rates rebilling, that type of thing, but they will be quite small. So I think we've seen everything that we're going to see at the moment. But if we do get any more announced, then we will update the Cabinet as part of our quarterly reports, which come to you each quarter.
Thank you, Alison. If I can just come in before Sam wraps that one up. We also have our general fund still sitting there at 2.5 million, which is our substantial reserve, our rainy day fund effectively. We didn't draw too much on that because we were able to finance some of the other shortfall from other sources. But Sam, as our chairman today and leader of the council, is absolutely right. The message from this is that we are in a strong financial position. Our plan is to build back stronger and better, because without that, we will be in as all other councils will find themselves, a difficult set of circumstances. And our plans to do that are well entrenched and will be developed over the coming months. And as you will see from the next item on the agenda, we are intending to do just that. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks, Phil. So you'll note that Breckland Council some years ago removed its reliance on new homes bonus from its core budget, Roger, and that allowed for us to reinvest some of that money. And you'll see some of the comments there about how we've used some of that funding to support our budget moving forward. But across the whole of the local government family, I think it's fair to say that every council up and down the country has some financial struggle. And I think it's fair to say that every government department across the country has some financial impairment on the back of COVID. And all of us will have a duty and a responsibility to ensure that we are spending our taxpayers' money in the most suitable way to get our biggest rate of return. And the white paper which is emerging is being classed as the recovery and devolution white paper. And part of that will talk about how councils can recover and be sustainable moving forward. And until that white paper emerges, Councillor Atwell, I don't quite know what the detail is going to look like. But across the whole of the local government family, whether it's unitary councils, county councils, or district and borough councils, all of us have attempted to lobby hard for government to support us financially. And I think the billions of pounds which have been pumped into local government throughout the pandemic at pace have replicated the fact that government heard that concern. But once the white paper emerges, I think councils will have to be grown up in how they respond to the white paper when it does emerge, to ensure that it does its duty to ensure that every taxpayer's money is spent in the most suitable way moving forward. So as much as the interim budget is being presented today, we'll have our normal budget set in at the end of this financial year. We may see a different landscape in how government funds local councils, but that's me speculating at the moment, and I wouldn't want to set any hairs running just yet. So if there are no other questions or comments, Councillor Cowan.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you. Yes, in that case, can we move to the recommendations and items 1 and 2 on the report?
And just to confirm for learned colleagues, this is recommendation to council, and this will be heard on the 24th of September. So it's not a cabinet decision, it's a cabinet recommendation to council. All those in favour? Lovely, thank you very much indeed. So we'll move on to item 10, which is the Q1 financial performance report for 2021. Councillor Cowan to present as well, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, leading straight on from that revised budget, of course. As at June the 30th, the forecast overspend is £217,000 in round figures, as per the report, the detail behind which was rehearsed in this previous item. The revised budget for 2021, this identified that taking into account the lost income streams, the additional costs and governmental assistance to Breckland in connection with COVID-19, coupled with Breckland's ability to draw on reserves to bridge the gap, the council is still showing potential overspend on its revenue budget. The capital budgets are shown an underspend of 5.8 million, and the build-up and reasoning for this are explained on page 31 of the papers, and they're shown in tables 1 and 2. As can be seen, there are some programs that are funded externally through grant funding streams, whereas others are delayed for various reasons, some of which members are already aware of. At this stage, it is anticipated that the majority of these capital projects will continue, and some will be central to Breckland Council's desire to build back stronger and position Breckland, its residents, businesses in a better place, and one that is more readily able to drive our economy forward as we come out of the pandemic. Once again, I'm indebted to the teams in Breckland, and when I say teams, I really mean teams across the council, who have provided all the information to our finance team so that this position statement could be presented today in as fully worked up a detail as possible. This report is for noting at this time, but either Alison or I are here to answer any detailed questions that you may have. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks, Phil. Questions or comments in relation to this agenda item, please? No, I can't see any hands raised. No, we're good, Phil.
Now we have Councillor
Chairman.
Burt, Chairman.
Okay. Councillor Burt.
Okay, sorry, Councillor Burt.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate that this is a working document and carrying forward. I noticed, though, that on page 28, you're classifying a number of these as one-off changes. I'm looking at things like empty commercial property rates reduction, I think perhaps the Breckland Bridge, and bad debt CVAs. Although these might be one-off in the sense of that you have concentrated on a single item, I wonder how we can do projections for the future, bearing in mind that this is not just going to be sort of a 3-month interval. I think this is actually going to play out over a longer period. How are we going to quantify these so that future budgets can be brought in line? Thank you.
Chairman, with your indulgence, I think Alison Chubbuck is better placed to answer that level of detail.
Thank you, councillors. So yes, it is going to be a challenge setting our budget next year because this hasn't been seen before. We're fortunate, our demand for commercial property has remained high. So even at the moment, the lettings are keeping high and definitely in the smaller areas of units. So we will build on what we learn over the next 3 to 6 months when we set the budget, and we will apply what we've seen and what we've learned and where we see the projections going for the future years. But yes, everything is a best estimate at the time, but we will use every evidence that we have. Thanks.
Thank you, Alison. And yes, Councillor Burt, it is a budget. It's the end of the first quarter. It's the best guess we have based on all the information that has been provided to us by all members of council and the officer teams behind them to take us to this particular position. We are fortunate, as I've said before, that we are in a strong financial position, and we will be able to claw back some of those overspends. And the one-offs are just one-offs. They really are. And when we look at some of the planning applications that are hitting us at the moment, and the ones of which we're aware coming in the pipeline, we can be assured that Breckland is a place in which people still wish to carry out their business. Thank you.
Lovely, thanks, Phil, and thanks to Councillor Burt. Any other questions or comments? No. Do you want to move the item then, Councillor Cowan?
No, it's just for noting, Chairman.
Okay, so everyone's noted. Super. Lots of smiles. Okay, thanks, Phil. We'll move on to item 11, which is the Breckland Sustainability Strategy, standard item, and Councillor Ian Sherwood to present, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. This morning, I have three areas I'd like to cover. The first is the carbon audit. The second will be the development of a carbon literacy toolkit. And thirdly, I would like to talk about the LGA's Net Zero Innovation Programme. Prior to that, if I may, I will comment on Councillor Morton's point made earlier. I'm pleased to be able to tell Councillor Morton that the warm housing grant has been applied for. My colleague on the Cabinet, Councillor Alison Webb, and her team have put that application in, and there will be a press release early this week, possibly today, with detail of that. If I can go back to the main points of my report, I think where we are is climate strategy and sustainability is incredibly important that we get this right from the beginning, as I have said before, and laying those foundations in a sound place is where we need to be. You'll recall that I mentioned that we were looking to procure a carbon audit for the council, and this is really important because we need to know exactly where we are. Unfortunately, we've got a little bit of frustration on that. As you can imagine, councils across the country are all looking at climate change and a sustainability programme, and many of the big national carbon audit organisations are booked for a long time ahead. This is enormously frustrating. So what I've asked the team to do is to look to see if they can find other companies, but we do need a company with a reputation, or whether there's other ways that we can establish exactly what our footprint is. So I will be coming forward with some ideas and thoughts on that. And it will be a question the Cabinet will look at as to whether we wish to wait a little bit longer and get the bigger companies and the bigger organisations who are experts in this, or whether we're comfortable with a smaller organisation or using data that we can obtain as well. Secondly, our intern, and he's been doing some great work, has been working with the Breckland training services to develop a carbon literacy toolkit. Lots of fancy words there, but what does it mean? Well, what I found was that I have done a carbon audit on my own life, and I was shocked to find out how big my carbon footprint was. And I think we all need to understand that as an organisation, as individuals, both professionally and privately, so we know exactly what is causing all the issues. There's lots of things we don't think about, and the carbon literacy toolkit will help individuals and the organisation understand exactly what's causing the issues. And I think that will be quite an eye-opener for both individual councillors and the organisation. You can then seriously think about what you do and what your contribution is to creating carbon and damaging the environment. What we plan to do is to have this tested by a small group of members and officers ahead of a wider rollout in November, December. Lastly, I'd like to talk about the LGA Net Zero Innovation Programme to address climate change. So this is a new programme that the LGA have introduced, and it's for officers from councils across all the regions in England for an initial period of 12 months. We'll be applying for that, and if we're successful, we'll be able to work with organisations and universities from across the country to help us look at possible solutions to our local challenges here. The grant funding is up to £18,000, and that will be awarded to each successful council. That's all I have to report at this stage, Leader. I'm happy to take questions, and if Councillor Morton requires further detail, if you can drop me an email, Councillor Morton, I'll make sure you have the answers to the specific questions you require. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Any questions or comments in relation to the three areas Ian updated Cabinet and Council on today. Councillor Attewell, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Sherwood, for your report. I wonder, would it be possible to have a written report, please? I think it's now 12 months since this council agreed that it would take up this challenge. And I appreciate we're getting the verbal reports, but I really would appreciate some kind of written report, perhaps that you could bring forward to full council, just so that we can see exactly where we are at the moment and monitor progress a little bit more closely. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Attewell. The reports come to Cabinet. That's where I give my report on the climate strategy rather than full council, but I'm sure we can arrange for you to have some specific detail and some written detail. I don't have any problem with that.
Great stuff. Thanks, Councillor Attewell. Thanks, Ian. If there are no further questions, I'm just looking across all the screens and looking towards Julie and Teresa. No, lovely. Okay, thanks. So if we'll move on then. So item 12, date of the next meeting. The date of the next meeting will be Monday, the 19th of October, 2020 at 9:30 on Zoom. So thanks everyone for your time today, and I will see you on Thursday, the 24th of September for full council.